Hi everyone, thanks for watching. In today's video, I want to talk about the coming chaos that will hit our nation beginning tomorrow, January 4th, and running through January 7th. I am convinced that the events of the next 4 days will shock America and much of the world as Donald Trump and his political supporters take a big step toward overturning the election results and getting him installed as president for a second term. There are now just 2.5 weeks until Joe Biden is scheduled to be sworn in as president, but the events of this coming week may very well prevent that from taking place. So let's take a moment to talk about each of these 4 days and understand what is about to happen. First, on Monday, January 4th, Trump is scheduled to hold a rally in Dalton, Georgia at 9 p.m., ostensibly in support of the two Republicans running in Tuesday's special election, although just yesterday Trump referred to those elections as illegal and invalid. So in reality, Trump will primarily be airing his grievances about how the November election was stolen from him and that he should be given the crown of president for another 4 years. The large crowd that Trump will be speaking to, both at the venue and on TV, already believes he was the rightful victor in the November election. And they already believe that the Democrats, along with the media and big tech, stole the election from him. They are extremely angry and upset at what happened, and Trump will play on these emotions and incite the crowd to hate the Democrats, to hate the media, to hate big tech, to hate the governor of Georgia, to hate anyone who does not fully support him and isn't helping him stay in power. In short, Trump's rally tomorrow night on January 4th will lay the foundation for all the chaos, controversy, and even violence that will take place over the next few days and leading up to January 20th. On January 5th, we have the Georgia special election, comprised of two separate contests. The stakes are quite high as the Democrats can actually control the U.S. Senate if they win both races. Needless to say, anyone interested in American politics will be watching for the results on Tuesday night. Unfortunately, there's almost no chance that the election will be called on election night. Just like in the November elections, the mail-in and absentee ballots will take several days to tabulate, perhaps even up to 2 weeks according to some estimates. Adding to the drama, again, just like what happened in November, the first returns coming in on election night are extremely likely to favor Republicans, with Democrats gaining ground as mail-in and absentee ballots are counted in subsequent days. And just like in November, we will once again have a situation where most Republicans believe that election fraud has taken place because they were leading on election night, only to have the numbers change dramatically in the days immediately afterwards. The anger among conservatives, who will think that yet another election has been stolen from them, will resonate throughout the country. It will even add more fuel to the fire to those on the far right to take action, perhaps even violent action. These are the very same people who were already riled up after the November election that they believe was stolen from Trump. January 6th is when Congress is scheduled to officially certify the results of the Electoral College. Well, that's what they would do in a normal year, but 2021 is starting off being every bit as abnormal as 2020 was, perhaps even crazier if you can imagine that. Last Wednesday, we saw Senator Josh Hawley, a Republican from Missouri, become the first Republican senator to publicly say that he will object to the certification of the presidential election results. Ted Cruz announced yesterday, January 2nd, that he will also object to certifying state electoral college votes and called for resurrecting an electoral commission to conduct an emergency audit of the results. As I'm making this video, there are 10 additional Republican senators also expected to object to the certification of the electoral college results. They are Ron Johnson of Wisconsin, James Lankford of Oklahoma, Steve Daines of Montana, John Kennedy of Louisiana, Marsha Blackburn of Tennessee, Mike Braun of Indiana, Cynthia Lummis of Wyoming, Roger Marshall of Kansas, Bill Hagerty of Tennessee, and Tommy Tuberville of Alaska. These senators released a joint statement which reads, Congress should immediately appoint an electoral commission with full investigatory and fact-finding authority to conduct an emergency 10-day audit of the election returns of the disputed states. Once completed, individual states would evaluate the Commission's findings and could convene a special legislative session to certify a change in their votes if needed. Over in the House, reports are that we will have at least 140 Republican representatives also objecting to the certification of the presidential election results. As astounding as that number might seem, I believe we could see a final total approaching 170, or nearly 90% of the total Republicans in the House, as Trump and his allies ramp up pressure on each Republican House member to get in line behind Trump. Ironically, of the dozen Republican senators and well over 140 representatives who will object to the certification of the presidential election results, very few have gone on record to state that they believe that there was widespread voter fraud or that Biden didn't legitimately win. So why are so many Republicans objecting to the certification of the Electoral College results? Simply put, they have political aspirations for re-election in 2022 or even higher office down the road and simply cannot afford to alienate Trump and his fanatical following. They are not only afraid of Trump, who can and often does turn his entire base against a Republican with one simple tweet, but they are deathly afraid of Trump supporters. The net result of so many Republicans objecting to the results of Electoral College has the effect of purifying the Republican Party, drawing a distinct line between those Republicans who stand with Trump and those Republicans who will now be labeled as never-Trumpers or rhinos or even treasonous. All these Republicans who will object to certifying the Electoral College results may think they are protecting their own political future by pleasing Trump and his supporters. But the truth is that they are empowering Trump and marking the official death knell for the Republican Party. It was on life support before, but as of this week coming up, the GOP is officially dead. It is now the Trump Party, and going forward, Donald J. Trump will be more powerful and feared than ever before. The other wild card on January 6th is Vice President Mike Pence, who Trump and his supporters have been pressuring to reject the results of Electoral College instead of signing off on them. Having the power to reject the results doesn't seem to be constitutional, as a vice president's role in certifying Electoral College results is largely viewed to be ceremonial. That won't stop Trump and his cohorts from trying to get Pence to throw a monkey wrench into the process, however. Many in D.C., both Republican and Democrat, have spoken out in the last couple of weeks in defense of Pence's integrity and his commitment to the U.S. Constitution. They characterize him as the anti-Trump, someone who knows the difference between right and wrong. They simply can't see him as being a willing participant in helping to overturn the results of Electoral College. It is important to note, however, that Pence is also an evangelical Christian, and many evangelical Christians believe that Trump is doing God's will and was possibly even chosen by God to lead our nation through these end times. With that in mind, it's simply impossible to know how Pence will act on January 6th. As a side note, pro-Trump attorney Lynn Wood, who has made some of the boldest claims of voter fraud in the 2020 presidential election, tweeted Friday that Vice President Pence, if he doesn't do his part to help Trump stay in office, could face arrest and imprisonment for treason and even execution by firing squad. The shocking part is that many on the far right agree with him and have often talked in terms of executing those who they perceive as being Trump's enemies. It is statements like Lynn Wood's and those on the far right who have consistently advocated for executing Trump's enemies that reminds me of John 16:2, which reads, "The time is coming that whoever kills you will think that he offers God service." The most chaotic and even dangerous part of January 6th might be the several pro-Trump rallies scheduled around D.C., which will take place while Trump simultaneously riles up his base on Twitter, or perhaps even by making an appearance. If there's one major theme we will hear on Wednesday from Trump and other Republicans, it is accusing Democrats of trying to steal the Georgia elections, just like they did in November. This rhetoric will obviously inflame and provoke the MAGA crowd to take some sort of action. And of course, the pro-Trump rallies will be met by counter-protesters, many of them also filled with anger, and so the likelihood of violence taking place is all but certain. Remember, as I said a moment ago, the initial results on January 5th will show the Republicans leading, but beginning on January 6th, those numbers will begin to change as more absentee and mail-in votes are counted. To Republicans, they'll view the changing totals on January 6th as a theft in progress. By the end of the day, on Wednesday, January 6th, we will have 3 days of Trump continually stoking tensions and riling up his base to take action. We will have had 2 full days to digest the special elections, which the Republicans will believe that Democrats are trying to steal. And we will have had a full day of massive pro-Trump rallies in D.C. by groups that will be heavily armed and full of hatred at anyone and everyone who is against Trump. Thursday, January 7th marks the beginning of the final 2 weeks before Biden is theoretically sworn in, and we will have a situation where Trump knows that his time is short and that he must act fast. He will, of course, continue to incite anger, overtly lie, sow discord, denigrate those who oppose him, and urge his base of supporters to take action. But what else might he do in the final 2 weeks in order to prevent Biden from being sworn in? Will the Republicans objecting to the Electoral College numbers end up being successful and prevent Biden from reaching the magic 270? My feeling is that it will fall short and Trump will be left with just 2 weeks to find another solution. But what might that other solution be? I get my news and opinion from a variety of sources, including conservative websites and talk radio. In case you're not a listener, conservative talk radio and conservative websites are 100% on board with Trump and the Republicans trying to overturn the election results by whatever means they need to. To them, Trump invoking the Insurrection Act or even declaring martial law is perfectly fine. After all, they reason, the Democrats have stolen the election, so whatever Trump needs to do to stay in power is justified in their eyes. Whatever he needs to do will meet with their approval. My channel is a bit less than a year old, but I've been saying from the get-go that Trump will win the 2020 election one way or the other. I know that many of you disagree, and that is fine. But even those of you on here who are the most confident that Biden will be sworn in have to be just a bit concerned about the events taking place this week. I'm just a normal guy, and I certainly could be wrong, but I am convinced that Donald J. Trump will remain in power. How that eventually happens, I don't know, but we are about to find out over the next couple of weeks, and especially over the next couple of days. In closing, let me remind any of you that support Trump, don't be fooled. This man doesn't know the difference between right and wrong. He doesn't know the difference between truth and lies. He wants to be praised. He wants 100% loyalty, and he wants to remain the most powerful man in the world. Let no man deceive you by any means. Donald J. Trump is the Antichrist. Thanks for watching, and please be respectful in the comments. Take care.